So guys, welcome back to the Process of a Pro series. It's been a while since I've made a video, so I decided I'm going to be updating it with one of the most important endgame videos that you guys can watch. This one's going to be extremely important. Every single pro player, if you guys wonder how they survive for so long in the endgames, this is how. It's going to be how to tarp during the endgame correctly. Be sure to use code SonataYT. Let's hop right into it. So first off, I want to go over how you guys can save materials while tarping. Now these are just general tips about how you guys can conserve the most amount of materials and save them for later and later in the game, and how you guys can effectively tarp without wasting any resources. So the first thing is that you guys need to only place builds in places where you need them to protect you from enemy players. So for an example, let's say that you're tarping on the edge of zone, and let's say that the enemy players are all on the right side of the lobby. The left side of your character is not going to be affected because the zone can't shoot you. Enemy players can, so you're going to want to block your right side. This is going to save a lot of the extra materials that you guys may use on the left side. However, it is important that you guys watch that area in case anybody does try to shoot you for going around you, going into storm and trying to shoot you, or shooting you from above. It's also really important that you guys don't place build pieces on the ground if you're on low ground, or above you if you're on height. That's going to save a bunch of mats because once again, the ground can't shoot you and the sky can't shoot you. Only enemy players can, which is why you need to cover yourself from every side that enemy players are on. What you should also try and do is use natural cover as a form of protection. So what I mean by that is areas that are rocky, natural cover like trees, rocks, stuff like that can block you from a lot of enemy fire, and nobody's really going to go out of the way to shoot those natural cover elements in order to actually get hits on you. For example, if you're tarping up against a mountain, you don't need to place a build piece on the mountain because the mountain's going to be covering you from all fire. If you're tarping up in the middle layers, try not to place build pieces in front of you unless you are boxing up. I see a lot of people doing this weird straight tarp where they place build pieces and then edit it in front of them. It's important that you don't do that in order to conserve the most amount of materials. Unless you guys are actually trying to box up and stop your tarp, there's really no point. Now let's get into the different types of tarping techniques. So let's start off with the triangle tarp. This is the tried and true method. Every comp player should know this one. It's essentially where you place one wall, one floor, and then one ramp to the side of you. It doesn't take that long to master. It's honestly pretty simple to do. Now the second one is a really useful one. This is going to be the snake tarp. This is where you're going to be going in a zigzag pattern across the zone. Essentially what you're going to want to do is place a floor above and below you, and then two walls connecting that floor in a zigzag pattern. So for example, floor, floor, wall to your left and wall to your right, then floor, floor, wall to your right, and then wall to your left. This is going to give you a zigzag snake pattern that's really helpful in actually getting through the zones that are really diagonal, especially if there's a lot of players around you that you don't want to go straight for. This helps you get from point A to point B the fastest. Now, the next one's going to be a straight tarp. So this is really useful if you guys have a direct path to zone. You can do a pretty easy straight tarp in which you make a straight tunnel. Essentially, you're going to place one wall above you, one wall below you, and then one to your left and right, and continuously do that. But once again, remember, don't place anything in front of you and then edit it for no reason. That's just a waste of materials. Then the next thing that you guys can do is an upwards tarp. Now an upwards tarp is really useful if there's terrain in front of you like a mountain that you need to get up. What you're going to do in this one is you're going to be in your normal tunnel, and then you're going to place two ramps above and below you, and then two walls to the left and right of you. You're going to want to place them in sort of a tower fashion as if you're making like an upwards ramp tower. Now this is going to help you rotate upwards very easily. It's really good as it helps you stay protected from the top. Ideally, people won't be able to trap you very easily in this tower simply because of the weird layout. Now, this tarp is extremely useful if you guys are trying to rotate around people as well. So you need to practice doing it not only forward, but also side to side. Now, a really big thing is that you guys need to understand that you won't have a perfect version of all of these tarps. You will need to use a combination of all of them, sometimes at the same time, in order to actually succeed in rotating. Now, the next section is going to be on exactly how to tarp and where to go. Now, let me just introduce you guys to the most important aspect of the endgame, in my opinion. This is going to be pathing. Now, while rotating and tarping is the action of actually moving through the endgame, pathing is the route that you take during the endgame that can actually lead you to the zone. Now, these two things can be very easily confused. So understand that pathing is actually the route that you take rather than how you get there. Pathing is, I'd argue, the most difficult aspect of the endgame, and it's really what separates a bad player from a really good player. Trust me guys, if you don't listen to anything else from this video, listen to this one thing. Pathing is the most difficult aspect of the endgame and you need to master it. In order to get good pathing, you need to perfect two primary things. The first aspect is going to be scouting. This is where you need to scout prior to every single zone and then see what areas around the map are open and what terrain stands in between you in the next zone. Now what this will do is have you actively thinking about how to path and where. A good way to get good at scouting is to always be looking at something and gaining information of your surroundings. What you can do is look through a cone, a window, or anything that will help you gain awareness. Now the second part is anticipation. anticipation. This is where you need to anticipate and take your best guess as to where the enemy players may cross your path and interfere with your rotation. Anticipation is really important when you guys are trying to rotate around sticky situations. This is where you see all of the pro players taking these routes through the zone, trying to go around people, trying to go under, over. It's where the IGLs actually make their decision of which direction they're going to go. Now, a really good way to practice your anticipation is to watch professional players and see how they rotate. You can continue watching them for a while, understand the way that they rotate depending on the situation, and you'll start to see some similarities. Then I'd recommend you continue watching them, but before they start to rotate in the actual video, you need to guess where they're going to rotate, and then if you get it right, you're perfect. This is how your anticipation gets better. You really need to practice this. These two aspects of scouting and anticipation are very important for improving your pathing. Now, the next section is going to be about duo tarping. Now, I think that duos being the main game mode is going to be coming to an end very soon, so this is just going to apply to any general game mode. In team game modes, one of the players should be tarping, which is usually going to be the IGL, and then one of the other players should be periodically blocking the back of the tarp. A really good example of this is watching pretty much any professional team. They're always continuously blocking the back of their tarp in order to get the most amount of protection possible. Now, if you don't do this, then what will often happen is that players will sneak into your tarp from a random angle and then try to eliminate you. Most of the times, players in the back of the tarp are going to be only looking for kills because they're scuffed and they need to use your tarp. So their only goal is to eliminate you, and your goal should be to protect your team. That's why it's really important that you guys place these build pieces in between you and the enemy players trying to sneak up behind you. Essentially, the idea is that you don't want to really have any blind spots when you're competing. If you have any blind spots during the endgame, it's a very big danger. It's also important that you calm any enemies trying to break into your tarp. Now, what I mean by this is, for example, let's say that you're rotating and you're tarping, and you're the fragger and your IGL's tarping up ahead, and you see an enemy team trying to break into the back of your tarp. If you can't successfully block them off and escape, you need to make that the primary focus of your IGL. They need to be helping you in the small engagement that you may have with them. I'd also recommend that you guys try to communicate any build pieces that aren't yours in the tarp. So for example, let's say that you start rotating and your IGL accidentally misses a piece and an enemy team takes it. Calm that, make sure that your IGL knows that, and try to block it off and then continue rotating. I think the really big issue with a lot of duos sometimes is that they don't really have a certain amount of chemistry that helps them collect their ideas while they're tarping. And in these team game modes, calming with your IGL in your tarp about what pieces are yours, which way you guys are going, what's happening, that's something you really have to do. Lastly, there's some professional players that I'd recommend to all of you guys. I'd recommend that you watch these three primary players. Number one's going to be Mr. Savage, an absolute IGL legend. He pretty much invented the idea of pathing through zone during the endgame. You guys definitely need to continue watching him. He's extremely good. And then also I'd recommend that you guys watch players like Tayson. Tayson is one of the best players of all time. I'd actually argue that Tayson is one of the best tarpers in the world. What he's normally going to do is rotate in very smart and intelligent ways to the center of the zone. So Tayson's ideal place to be is on high ground or on low ground. But if he's not there, a really good thing that Tayson does is he successfully maneuvers around enemy players very good. You need to really try to emulate that. But of course, the last player that you guys definitely need to check out is going to be Bugha. Bugha is obviously the World Cup champion and has won 3 FNCSs. An incredible player. He has some of the best pathing in the world. Check him out. His tarping skills are extremely good. He knows exactly how to tunnel, how to save mats, how to effectively get kills while tarping. Very good player. Be sure to check him out. But yeah, guys, that is the video on exactly how to tarp in the process of a pro series. I actually talked to a couple of my friends for this video because they're semi-professionals and pro players, and they gave me some really good advice about how to save mats and how to use different tarp techniques. I can actually make a video later on showcasing the tarp techniques if you guys would like that, even though I did do it in this video. But if you guys would like that, please let me know. But that's about it for this video, guys. Be sure to like and subscribe to the channel, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye, guys.